Welcome to the We're Better Together podcast. I'm Ian Stevenson.
And I'm Daniel Orduña. Each month, we're excited to bring you an incredible interview with someone who has experience in facilitating an environment where people work better together.
And each week, we'll share some actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to help you function better together, whether it's in your marriage, family, team, workplace, church, or community.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Now let's jump into some content and get better together. Welcome back for another 10-minute tune-up that we have for you today. Now, we just had a great conversation and an interview last week with Major Harding, and we learned a lot within that about his story and how he had a moment where he had to just kind of go for it. He had to take the leap. What was presented before him was a situation that he just had to step into or make a choice to step into. We thought that would be a great follow-up for this tune-up today around this idea of just go for it. Sometimes in our jobs, in our families, in our life, there's moments where there's an opportunity there where we just are faced with we're faced with the challenge of, are we going to jump in and take charge? Are we going to jump in and leap and be a part of something that's going on? And sometimes you just want to go for it. It helps you in terms of growing in who you are, and maybe even helps to facilitate and bring together a group of people within that, or there's things that we can learn because maybe not everything goes right. And so I think we just want to have a really good conversation around this, looking at why don't we jump in sometimes? Why should we jump in sometimes? And what's a challenge that we can walk away with? And I think when we think about why don't we just go for it sometimes, I think a big thing that comes to mind for me is fear. We let fear get a hold of us. We're too afraid. We don't think that we're capable or we're able to do whatever it is. That's one that sticks out to me. Ian, would you add to that in terms of why we don't just go for it at times?
Yeah, fear is a big one for sure. And I think also some of it's personality driven, right? Depending on your personality, maybe you are more risk averse than you are a risk taker. Maybe you're more introverted than extroverted, so you might not jump into a conversation that can help bring unity. You might not jump into a situation where you got to work with a bigger group of people. But, if we're going to really make a difference through this podcast and get more people really fighting for unity and being willing to make a difference, I think today we want to encourage you to just go for it. Like, don't worry about your personality thing. Like, we want you to see opportunities where there can be more unity and more togetherness, and then jump into it. That could be it could be in your marriage. It could be in your a recreational team that you're a part of, whatever. Look for it. And when you get that prompt, wow, like if we just talked about this, or if we worked on that, or if we stepped into that, or your boss asks you, will you do this? Don't say no. Like, be willing to just go for it, because the reason we don't, as Daniel said, I think fear is probably the biggest one, but also it's just we don't think we can. We don't think we can make a difference. It's a lack of confidence. And so many times what's just really needed in order to bring people together is one person that's willing to ask the right question. That's all it is. It's asking the right questions. And sometimes we don't just jump in and do that. We think we can't. And we don't have to go in with all the answers. We don't have to go in with all the skills. We just got to sometimes be willing to ask the right. So I don't know. I can't think of other reasons why we don't. Of course, I'm a personality that would want to jump in right away. But maybe some of our listeners can tell us, like, why don't we jump in to make a difference? Shoot us an email. Tell us why don't people jump in and try to create more unity? I don't know, Daniel. What do you think?
I think we hit two of probably the bigger ones that come to mind for me, which is that fear, or that confidence, the lack of confidence that we're not capable. I can't do this. I think those are the two that stand out to me, and I would be curious as well to hear what others have to say. But Ian,
what about the fact that we just don't care enough? Like, we honestly don't really want to see unity that badly. That probably keeps people from jumping in, like we just don't want it bad enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we're okay with things not being so united at work or at school or at home or in our family. We're just satisfied with the status quo and we don't care enough. So maybe that's something to take a look at,
Something it also could be outside of our comfort zone. It makes me uncomfortable. Whatever it is that I would be leaping into makes me uncomfortable. And I just want to stay comfortable. I don't want to get out of the comfort zone.
Yep. Yeah, there's no arguing that if we're going to fight for unity, it gets uncomfortable, right? It does require some ability to jump in and let your voice be heard or speak up for something, I mean, I think about Major Harding's interview last week. It would have been so easy for him to say, no, I'm not going to take over 250 Marines. I'm good with my 12. 12 is good. I'm going to just stay with my 12. Yep. Forget the 250, but he jumped in and he learned so much. And I think that's kind of what spawned us wanting to do this tune-up today, is that so many times when we don't jump in, we miss out on opportunities to learn. And so, if let's say it's your family, I just had an experience, family vacation. We had 8 kids under 8. We had 7 adults. We were outnumbered by the kids. It was a little chaotic. And in that kind of environment, you don't feel that united. You're just in survival mode. And so sometimes it's uncomfortable to jump in and say, hey, let's have intentional conversation. Let's talk. Let's get more connected and more united on this time together instead of just surviving through it. But sometimes when, like for me, the way I felt like if I'm going to step into that conversation, it's going to feel uncomfortable. They're going to feel like, oh, he's just trying to be the skipper of the ship here or something. And instead of just going for it. And then as a result, the conversations that come make us feel so much more connected, and it makes the vacation so much better than if I'd have just sat back and let it all go crazy, So sometimes you just have to go for it because you learn in the process. Like what I learned in that process were some things about my daughter-in-law, things about my son, the way they manage and parent, some of their parenting ideas, which are different. And we had to work through all this and become more united rather than just surviving the week, right? And it would have been really easy not to have those conversations. So I think the reason we should do it is because we will learn something.
Yeah.
We definitely will learn if we're willing to.
Absolutely. I think you remind me as well of I remember a story. I was 19 or 20 years old. We're going to go down to Mexico, build some houses, do a VBS, Vacation Bible School. And we drive down to Mexico, and my boss gets a phone call that his wife's going into labor. And so he's got to turn right around, cross the border, come back into the state to go to the hospital. And who's in charge?
The intern.
Who's going to go? The intern. Here's the keys to the vehicle. Here's this. I'm in a country that's not my own, a language that I don't speak. And yet there was a moment of, all right, I'm going to leap. Almost in the midst of the chaos, there wasn't a second guessing. It was, here we go. And I think, as you said, in terms of learning, I learned a lot about myself in that moment. I also learned a lot about other people as I watched other people then step forth and fill in roles that were needed. Whole where there were gaps, they filled that. And I think it taught me that you can have moments where your boss, your parent, your best friend, your mentor or something is not in charge of something, has to leave, whatever, and something actually can still happen. A group can still come together and chase a goal, accomplish something. And had we never leapt, we wouldn't have learned maybe this gift that somebody had that they offered, or that this team could go do this without the head person being there. And so I think as we share with our listeners here and those two examples that you just heard, the things that we're talking through, the why we don't, why we should, as we come up on 10 minutes here, we really just want to challenge you. Be thinking about this week that you have ahead of yourself. Where is there a place that you can just go for it? Where you can go for it, try it, and see what it is that you learn in the midst of that process. Ian, would you leave us with anything in the last 30 seconds to a minute here?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be big. It can be a conversation. It can be just a one-time opportunity. It doesn't have to be a trip to Mexico to build houses or like it. Just look this week. We want to challenge you. Look for an opportunity to just go for it, to jump in and try to bring unity. Don't sit back and let it go by. Otherwise, you're going to miss that opportunity to learn. And we want our audience to keep learning, to keep fighting for more unity in whatever setting you're in. So this week, just go for it. That's what we want for you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope this 10-minute tune-up challenges you to be better together.